Okay, so we've already covered wire and it's pretty straightforward. Wire is a conductor of electricity. The thicker the wire, the more electricity it carries. We'll be using jumper wires for most of our circuits, which are solid core. Remember, that means that they have a single piece of metal running inside of them. All of the jumper wires are the same in that they have metal conductors inside of them. You can use any color, just remember what one does what thing. For example, if we don't have enough reds or blacks for your power supply or neutral, you could use different colors like yellow, but keep your scheme consistent. Use yellow then for all of your power supplies. On a wiring diagram, which is kind of like a blueprint for electrical circuits, wires will be drawn as straight lines. Resistors do exactly what it sounds like they do, resist. A resistor is essentially a component that forces electrons to lose some of their energy potential, thereby reducing the amount of electricity that flows in a circuit. Its symbol is a squiggly line. You can imagine that making all of these turns reduces the amount of energy that the circuit could carry. Now, resistors can be tricky little things. We know that the formula for calculating resistance is voltage divided by amps, but how do we know we have the right resistor? I'm going to have you turn to the notebook to the chart in your notebook rather for this one. When we look at a resistor, what we can see is that they have a series of colorful bands on them. You need to look at the resistor with the gold or the silver band on the right-hand side. It's on this bulby part. The most common resistor we'll work with will have 3 lines on the left and then that one on the right. The first 2 bands correspond to individual numbers. You can see which colors go with each number value. Now, the one I have up here on the screen has 2 red bands in a row. Red means 2, which means the first 2 bands equal 2 and 2, 22. Note that I just put the numbers together next to each other. I don't multiply or add them or anything like that. The next band, the third one, is the multiplier. This one's brown and it's worth 10. This means that we have to multiply the first 2 numbers, 22, by 10, which gives us 220. The last band, this gold one, tells us that the number is accurate within 5%. So this means this resistor will resist anywhere between roughly 210 and 230 ohms. We need to be able to calculate resistors because if we don't put enough resistance on a circuit, we could damage or fry the electrical components. Too much resistance will prevent electricity from reaching those components in the first place. So we're going to practice a lot with this. Now the next one is a capacitor. A capacitor is a component that stores electricity and then discharges it back into the circuit when there's a drop in voltage. Think of it like those water towers that certain towns have. They collect water so that way when the water supply for the town dips, they can balance it all back out. Capacitors are essentially a series of small metal plates that can store some of the electricity that flows through a circuit so that if there's any fluctuations in the current, they can release their stored energy to keep things consistent. Imagine a circuit that's coming close to using all of its available wattage. If I turn on another light or a hairdryer, the circuit flickers or dims, right, like the lights would. If there was a capacitor on that circuit, it would release some of its stored energy to prevent that flickering from happening. Capacitors, like resistors, have their own special calculations and formulas. We don't really need to know them now, but be on the lookout in the future. Now, because capacitors are made out of plates of metal, the symbol is simply 2 parallel lines that run perpendicular to the wire. The next one's an inductor. An inductor is similar to a capacitor, except that it stores up energy to counteract changes in voltage rather than current. I'm sorry, the reverse. They change current, not voltage. They're used less frequently now, but were once used a lot when radios were more commonly used. Inductors are large, tightly wound coils of metal that help regulate current. As electrons move through the coils, they generate a magnetic force that can be released when needed. Because of their shape, their symbol is a series of loops. Now, inductors are actually quite common in a lot of personal devices. They're actually kind of like the precursor to modern-day speakers because they're capable of transmitting electricity in a way that replicates sound and creates wavelengths. They can also be used to create electromagnets or magnets controlled by electrical circuits. It all depends on how tightly the coils are wound. The tighter the coil, the more magnetic force they create. Another way of using inductors, while very simplified, is in motors. The magnetic force that inductors can create can move the gears of a motor in a single direction, which makes the motor turn. If you were to reverse the flow of electricity, it would cause the motor to spin in the opposite direction. Now the next one is a diode. Diodes are pretty interesting because they have a unique way of regulating electricity. These other components tell us how much voltage or current flows. What this does is routes the electricity in a specific way. It allows it to go in one direction but not the other. Now while the other components we've looked at can control the flow of electricity, right? This one can tell us that it goes this way or that way and it can't go in unwanted paths. To do this, diodes are what we call polarized, meaning that they have a positive end and a negative end. It doesn't really matter which way we put a resistor on a circuit because it'll resist electricity no matter what, but how we put this on a circuit makes a big difference. The longer end is typically called the anode. It's the positive end. The shorter one is the cathode and the negative end. Because electricity flows from the anode to the cathode, the symbol for a diode is an arrow pointing at a wall. Imagine the electricity flows in the direction of the arrow, but that wall stops it from coming the other way. The most common type of diode that you've probably heard of is this one, an LED, or a light-emitting diode. Most diodes don't emit light, but LEDs can because it has photons in the actual device. On a diagram, LEDs use the same symbol as diodes, but they have arrows that point off of it to show that it's radiating light. Now, I've mentioned before that pumping too much electricity into a diode can cause it to burn up. That's because diodes don't resist electrical current, which is why we use resistors with them. Diodes can, however, reduce voltage, so if you use too many, you're going to dim the electricity and you won't have enough to light all of your components. Now, a switch is kind of a fun feature. It lets you control circuits. Essentially, a switch is an electrical component that can close or open a circuit. Every switch, including light switches, are simply pieces of metal that can move into place to complete a circuit or move out of place to break it. When you switch on your lights at night, you're pushing a metal piece into the circuit that allows the electrons to flow. It closes the loop. When you flip the light off, it moves the lever, so you flip the light off. It moves the lever up and it moves it out of the circuit, so now there's a break in the line and the electrons won't move. There's a lot of different types of switches. Standard switches have a metal lever that stays where you leave it. That symbol is simply a line that breaks the circuit and opens kind of like a door. We'll use the same symbol for all buttons, but push buttons like the ones we'll use in iTechs are called momentary switches because they create a temporary connection between two ends of a circuit. You'd connect them here. Once the button is pressed, it connects it, and when you let it go, it breaks it again. We're going to use the same symbol for all of our switches though. Now, batteries we've talked a lot about already. They're basically stores of chemicals that create fixed amounts of energy. You saw with the multimeter that most of them carry only 1.5 volts, despite being different sizes. Any type of standard round battery, like a AA, AAA, C, or D battery, carries 1.5 volts. The size just tells us how much electricity they can provide for how long. Putting batteries together, like how you would in a remote control or in a battery pack that we'll use, combines their voltage to create more power. You simply have to multiply 1.5 volts times the number of batteries. On a wiring diagram, one battery is represented by a long line, a positive end, and a short line, the negative end. If the drawing has multiple sets of these lines, that means you need multiple batteries. Now, a 9-volt battery sounds like it would carry more power than the other types, but it really only provides more volts for a shorter amount of time. A 9-volt battery has 6 1.5-volt batteries inside of it, but they're so small that they can only provide power for a short period. 9 volts are good to use in small spaces where you can't fit 6 double or AAA batteries. Now, the last thing is a node. A node is simply a point at which more than one electrical component joins together. The symbol for a node is a dot. Anytime you see a dot on a wiring diagram, that means that those components are coming and joining together. Now, that's a lot of information, but it's all going to come in handy when we start building our circuits. You'll see a lot of wiring diagrams like this one, and knowing what each symbol represents will save you a lot of time and frustration. Now it's time to start talking about how we bring all of these components together to create functional circuits.